So this one's from the Bleacher Report. Panic meter for every team's quarterback situation ahead of the 2024 NFL Draft. Browns low. There's a decent chance Deshaun Watson never gets back to where he was at the start of the decade in Houston, but the Browns are contractually married to him for several more years, so this has to remain low. All that's true, but I get the sense the Browns would do that trade again. Do you get that same sense?
That's a great question, Dave. I know that publicly they would say they would. I have doubts myself. I kind of look around the league and you see how teams have been able to get quarterbacks in the last couple of years without having to give up 5 draft picks, including 3 first-rounders, without having to pay $230 million. Probably not to the, I'm sure people would say not to the caliber of Deshaun Watson, which is accurate. But he hasn't been on the field much in 2 years. So I think it's an interesting discussion. And I'd like to get, a little truth serum for Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam and Kevin Stefanski, see what they would have to say. But they're still optimistic. There's no doubt about that. And I believe them when they talk optimistically about Watson and how they feel. He showed them a lot in that Baltimore game, what that potential can be, how good this team can be with Watson playing really well. So I believe all that. The panic thing's interesting because I think just because you're tied to him doesn't mean there's low panic. If things go badly early in the season, I think the panic meter could be high. I guess it depends if you're the fans or the Browns. If you're talking about the Browns, I don't think there is panic with Watson yet. I think outsiders probably view that differently.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, don't get me wrong, there's pressure on him. He has to go out and perform this year. But I get the sense that the Browns think that he will and are putting things around him to help him perform.
No, there's no doubt. And I do think, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but I think it's worth repeating is, we kind of view this as a 5-year thing with Deshaun Watson because that's what his contract is. But Andrew Berry says it, and I have no reason to question him. I think he means it, that the organization views it as longer term than that. So if you take a 8-year view or a 10-year view, then 2 years is a lot less substantial, right? It's 20% or whatever that percentage would be, as opposed to all of a sudden, if it's only a 5-year commitment, it goes from 40% of his contract to 60% in this year. Why? Which is why this year feels so pivotal. But if things go well, then Watson will be here much longer, and the issues/struggles in years 1 and 2 would feel like they would be removed and maybe just a blip in his long tenure with the team.
Yeah, and the other thing would be, I think if the Browns were being, again, truth serum, suspension was longer than they thought it was going to be, and they had, the injuries last year. You couldn't get them on the field for 4 games in a row. So they really haven't gotten any of what they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, I mean that's the reality of it, right? Which is why I think fans are nervous. Which is why I think it's tough to give a fair grade to this trade, and it's hard to give a fair evaluation of Deshaun Watson. Now, I think we take a step back. It's the player's responsibility to be on the field. Injuries, is out of their control. The suspension wasn't out of his control, or what he did to get the suspension. The Browns knew it. They underestimated it. Last year was bad luck. The key is that the injuries don't continue, and there's not another suspension, right? So there's no reason to think there's going to be another suspension. We don't know about the injuries, and it's such a big factor. And once a player gets injury or misses time with injuries, you're always worried about that in the back of your head, and that's why the Browns need Watson to play all or most of the season to get past that.